Watchdogs speak. For over 15 years, Kirk Allen and John Kraft, also known as Edgar Co Watchdogs, have been investigating and exposing corruption and misconduct in Illinois. They continually hold local governments accountable. They have a media outlet called Illinois Leaks, where they share cases that they've worked on. They have ousted, this is important, ousted 678 public officials or employees out of office through indictments, resignations, terminations, or election offices. Very impressive. They will share information on some of their cases tonight. So please join me in welcoming both Kirk and John.
Thank you. Appreciate the introduction. Can everybody hear me? Why are you here tonight?
Hear you.
Well, I appreciate that.
You do great work.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'll give a real brief background as to how I got started, why I got started. I retired out of the Air Force. I moved back to family farm. I'm a volunteer. I was a volunteer EMT medic and then a fire chief. And I got a call one night. We're volunteers. I'm 4.5 miles from the ambulance bay. And I get a call for an 11-day-old baby not breathing. How many mothers in here? Any nurses? Okay, she'll appreciate this one. I'm driving 100 miles an hour to get to the government housing in my little farm community of 800. I have 2 government housing complexes. 90% of our ambulance calls are to that facility. There, standing in the doorway, was a 16-year-old mother with an 11-day-old baby. The baby was screaming bloody murder. That's a good thing. If he's screaming, he's breathing. Okay? But for me, I was driving and putting myself at risk and anybody else between my home and the ambulance bay and that facility. I'm driving risk little to save little, risk a lot to save a lot. My dispatcher told me I had a high-risk case. I justified driving very fast. Okay? Well, when I get there, baby was fine. The child was in a blue 90 under fluorescent lights, and she said, well, he looks like he's turning blue. No, it's just your lighting, but many questions pop up, and I won't dive into a lot of those, but 16 years old in government housing, where's the father? I mean, lots of questions come, but anyway, I call my dispatch office, and I know these people, I worked with them for years. Hey, who took this call? And the guy says, well, I did. Well, could you tell me, did you do over the phone infant CPR? What do you mean? I don't know how to rephrase the question. You either did it or you didn't. Well, we don't do that. I mean, you don't have a medical dispatch flip chart that walks you through these calls? Oh no, we don't do that. So I went to my first public meeting in 2009. And I asked our 911 board, who's in charge of our dispatchers, are our dispatchers certified? Why do you want to know? Because I'm a taxpayer and I want to know. Are they certified? Well, what difference does it make? What's the problem? So I shared with them what the problem was. 15 minutes later, the answer I got was they're all trained. Did I ask if they were trained? I asked if they were certified. Are they licensed to operate? In Illinois, you're required to be an EMD, an emergency medical dispatcher. It's a license issued from the Department of Public Health. Just like I have to have an EMT license, you have to have a nursing license. 6 years. That was my first FOIA, was the Department of Public Health. None of our dispatchers had been certified in 6 years. It's an annual certification requirement. So I went to my first county board meeting, because the county board appoints a 911 board. Why is this happening? Because if someone sues the county, it's coming out of my taxpayer pocket because you've opened up liability because your dispatchers aren't licensed to dispatch medical calls. Well, John and I met at a sheriff's banquet, if I recall correctly. The new sheriff gets elected, and he's looking into it, and he goes, man, you know, I'm looking into this, and we're fixing the dispatch, but our 911 center is not even licensed to operate. That's how I got started. And it was through that I met John. And I'll let him share his introduction as to how he got started.
Sure. Mine's a little shorter. I started getting involved in local government because I approached the local school district, and I live in a small town of, 9,000 people, a county of 18,000 people. So I approached the school district. I just started a videography business. I was doing weddings. I'm glad I'm not doing that anymore. And I was approaching the school district to see if I could videotape their annual school play and sell it to the parents. I'm glad I'm not doing that anymore. The school district lied to me at the meeting. They said, we're not going to discuss this. You can talk to us later, but we're not going to discuss it tonight. This is not even an issue right now. At 8 o'clock the next morning, the secretary called me up and said they made a decision that the guy that's been doing it for 40 years and still delivering on VHS tape is going to keep doing it. Well, this was when the DVDs were popular. They're not anymore. So I went to a sheriff's victory meeting for the election, and Kirk was sitting right across the table from me, and started sharing the story about 911. I started sharing the story about the school district lying to me, and we just said, well, let's do something about it. And that's how we got started. We paid, $40 for a website, fired up Microsoft Word, typed out the first article, saved it in the HTML file, uploaded it, high five when 10 people read it. The next article, we added to that and saved the whole thing. After about 10 articles got to be cumbersome, because, it was all one HTML file. We didn't know anything about websites. So we started looking into WordPress.
Yep.
And we're still on WordPress.
And why did we open up a website to share our information? Every meeting I was at, our local media was there. Our local newspaper was there. They never published a single thing about what we were finding. Not one thing. That's why we chose to get the message out.
Plus, it saves all the information for people to search later. Right. You can search articles we wrote 15 years ago. And we quickly realized we had to record meetings that we were at. So I had this old camera, and Kirk and I heard something about our county's animal control being given to the mayor's wife's nonprofit animal humane association in the town. And we looked it up, and they can't do that. They were going to give the badges, the trucks, the tax revenue, and the authority to go on people's property and take their dogs to the mayor's wife's nonprofit. We went, and the meeting was in the mayor's law office. Our county board meeting was in the mayor's law office. And it wasn't a published meeting. We found out about it. We knocked on the door with the camera, and they're like, you can't come in here. I'm like, yes, we can. No, you can't. I said, tell Mayor Smith to contact the state's attorney and tell him we are here
And who was the
for
state's
this
attorney?
public meeting, and we are going to attend.
And who was the state's attorney? His former law partner.
Who's now a judge. So they let us in. They may have brought the issue up for about 5 seconds after my public comment when I told them they couldn't do it. And that was 15 years ago, and they've never brought the issue up again, ever. I think we shocked them. Nobody had ever even spoken to me, let alone tell them they couldn't do something.
Right. Challenging authority. Go figure.
That's and how we got started, really. You want to start off with some recent stuff? You want me to?
I have to tell you, I'm dying for questions. There's so much, it's hard to focus on what do we say. I'll be brief, I think. I don't know if that's possible. I want all of you to remember two questions and apply it to everything in your life. Says who, and with what proof? How many times you've been told something by someone that you fully trust, and you find out after the fact that what they said is not true or accurate? Says who with what proof? And when you start doing that across the board, you're going to find the vast majority of information that is being shared with you is inaccurate. And I'll give a case in point in my fire department. Last month, my assistant chief said, hey, we've got a couple guys that came in and grabbed the rigs to go out and do weather watching. And I said, we don't do weather watching, we're a fire department. Well, other counties, or other departments are doing it. And, that's what they do, they weather watch, that's their hobby. I said, well, they can do their hobby in their vehicle, they don't do it in a government vehicle. Well, they got upset because we put a stop to it. And I said, but I'll go one further to make my point. Next month, which was this month, last week, we had our fire meeting with our trustees, and our insurance agent was there for our annual premium review. And I asked the insurance agent, hey, if the guys come take a fire truck out or a brush truck out and they go weather watching, are we covered? Oh, sure, yeah, I think so. Who said that? Somebody caught it. I think so? That's not an answer. Well, why wouldn't you be? I'm like, well, could you show me where in the Fire Protection District Act weather watching is a function of a fire district? Well, I've never thought about that. Okay, my guys take a rig out, they get in a hailstorm or get in an accident, kill somebody or kill themselves, is the fire department liable? I would argue absolutely. And any attorneys in here? Any paralegals? Attorneys or paralegal? Both. Do you see a concern here? Okay. So we went back and forth, and he's like, well, if you get dispatched, you're covered. I'm like, me getting dispatched for an emergency is different. Okay? But we're not getting dispatched for weather watching. We talk about tips. How many tips are you getting now with Illinois Doge? He says, well, we do that in our county. I said, you do what? Oh, we get dispatched to weather watch all the time. Great, now I got something else to go look at because they're not supposed to be doing that. He gets all my information. He calls me last night about 8 o'clock. Hey, Chief, I got some answers for you. You're covered because there's no exclusion in the policy. Excuse me? That policies tell you what your coverage is. You're not covered for anything that's not in there. And he says, well, it's in your SOPs and SOGs, right? No, why would you make that assumption? Why? And he goes, well, just put it in your SOPs and your SOP is standard operating procedures, SOG, standard operating guidelines. Just put it in your policies and you'll be okay. Do you understand how we create policies and guidelines? We open up the Fire Protection District Act and we look at all the powers given to that unit of government. I can't build something outside of those powers. Oh, wow, I never thought about that. So here I am educating my insurance agent, and I said, I'll tell you what I told you the other night. You get me a written response from the legal counsel of the carrier that we're covered under those circumstances. Otherwise, we're not doing it. He said, well, I'll try to get that, but they weren't real receptive to writing a legal opinion on it. Fine, then I got my answer. I know we're not supposed to be doing it. But governments will do whatever they want to do based on what their feelings are. Dillon's rule, and I'll let John cover Dillon's rule, and then he can share whatever other story. But this just happened in the last 5 days. And it's like it's everywhere. You got to educate yourself, and you got to be smarter than the people you're talking to on the subject matter you're talking about. Dillon's rule.
Speaking of fire districts, We were also given a tip on a fireman that was going to do vehicle washing and detailing of his vehicle. And somebody sent us a Facebook picture from that fireman and said, I just finished this. And then another Facebook posting of the owner, I just picked up my freshly detailed vehicle. I looked at it and I'm like, that's a pretty clean truck. And I looked closer. To the left of that truck is a fire engine. The floor is wet. And the picture was taken inside the firehouse. So he's charging $200 to detail somebody's vehicle using the fire district's building, water, soap, electricity, and everything else.
What's wrong with that?
As soon as I sent a FOIA request where the board approved it, he took all that stuff off his Facebook page. And the fire department has not responded to that FOIA, and they're 3 days late. So he mentioned Dillon's rule. Anybody familiar with Dillon's rule?
But before you dive, since you brought up fire department and on piggybacking, someone shared with me here in Geneva that you have rainbow color fire hydrants. Okay? Only in a certain neighborhood? All right. Any firefighters in here? Any volunteers, full-time? Anybody? Fire hydrants, according to the National Fire Protection Association, blue, green, orange, red. Now that doesn't mean you use all those colors and make them rainbow, okay? I think they took it out of context. A blue hydrant is 1,500 gallons a minute or greater. A green one is 1,000 gallons a minute to $14.99. An orange one is 500 to $9.99. And a red one is less than 500. The reason we need to know that, grab that hydrant, not that one. I've got this kind of fire flow I need, so, I mean, there's a purpose behind it. So if you've got rainbow fire hydrants, you might want to go have a meeting at city council or your fire district, if it's a district, and talk to them and explain, folks, we have standards. There's a reason we do things the way we do it, okay? It's not time to social engineer a neighborhood. Okay, I'm done with that.
It's been a contest in Geneva for years, for Boy Scouts and stuff. Yeah, they make their own. Some look like cars, some look
We need to educate them the importance of what the code is and why they are what they are. If they want to paint something, put it on a piece of plywood and hang it up for that week's prize and whatever. But don't be painting public equipment in that fashion, in my opinion.
So back to Dillon's rule. Is anybody familiar with Dillon's rule? Nobody. Well, John Forrest Dillon was a Supreme Court justice in Iowa back in the
1800s?
1800s. And he came across this rule, and I understand why you're not familiar with it, because most of the municipalities up here are home rule. But the townships are not home rule, school districts are not home rule.
Counties aren't?
Cook County is. But the fire districts are not home rule, neither are the library districts and all the other little tiny mosquito abatement districts and everything else you have. Municipality, Cook County is home rule and municipalities can be. So Dillon's rule says a local government is only has a power as granted by statute and the powers or by the Constitution and the powers inherited with those powers that are granted. So you look for things that you can do, not for things that you can't do. And that's period. There's a period after that. It's not except, unless we want to, house a bunch of people that shouldn't be here to begin with the government money. That doesn't say they can do that. It doesn't say a fire department can provide sandbags and help people using fire district money with, pack sandbags during a flood. They can't do that.
Yeah, we can't go to your personal house and sandbag your house. Yes, we had that happen just north of me. They went to one person's home and tried to sandbag all around that one person's home while everybody else was underwater.
It doesn't say a library can run a food bank. Townships can now run a food bank. previous to when we were digging into DuPage Township, the statute never allowed them to. As soon as we brought it up, boy, somebody passed legislation faster than an eagle can fly. All of a sudden, they can have a food bank. So DuPage Township spending several $1 million building a brand new building because they need the food bank. I mean, there's only 3 or 4 others in Bolingbrook, but they have to have a new one for themselves. So that's essentially a diligence rule. If it's not a power granted in the statute or the Constitution, you can't do it. And one of the key issues recently, it deals with Thornton Township. Is anybody familiar with Thornton Township? Anybody familiar with Tiffany Henry? Oh, you've all heard her on the news?
The Dalton mayor?
Tiffany Henry tried passing an ordinance for compensation of township supervisor trustees. What it did was it gave, if she got reelected, she could keep her $240,000 salary. But any new person that got elected supervisor got $50,000. There was a law passed to get rid of that.
But if she would have been reelected, she could have kept the higher salary.
However, the supervisor before her got an ordinance passed for compensation. The statute says you have to set the compensation for the trustee. You got to set the compensation for the supervisor and the clerk. Those are the powers granted, setting the compensation. Not setting the compensation based off of how many terms they got reelected. Because you'll have somebody that's been in there a trustee for 16 years getting $41,000 a year more than you that just got elected sitting in a trustee seat. They're both doing the same thing. They passed an ordinance for graduated compensation based on number of terms of office. They can't do that. Now, the same one that, Harris was the one that passed that bill to get rid of what Hendrick did. Now he's stuck with the illegal compensation package that was passed before Hendrick was in office.
He's a senator, correct?
And he's taken that seat as the township supervisor. So it kind of makes me wonder, is he going to pick and choose the right answer? Is he going to get the 200,000+?
How many have seen the news stories on Tiffany Hendry and Dalton? Okay. Take a guess the year of the first article we wrote about Dalton, Illinois, and Thornton Township.
2020.
August of 21. August of 21. And it took a year and a half, 2 years before any media picked it up. And what was ironic, you have to be receptive, you have to be willing to help people that ask for help. We got contacted, I think it was through Alicia, one of the CPAs asked them to reach out to us. Well, have you talked to your local media? They won't return our call. Have you talked to the TV stations? They won't return our call. They literally ran into roadblocks. Jeannie, you remember Lincoln Way, District 210. We help those locals. The city police, well, we don't look at public corruption. The sheriff, that we don't mess with that. You need to talk to the state's attorney. State's attorney says, I prosecute, not investigate. Talk to the sheriff. Sheriff, I mean, it literally was who's on first. Finally, it went to the feds, and that superintendent was indicted by the feds, 6 felony counts. These locals, you've got to get people's attention. Those folks from Dalton reached out. We're 4 hours away from Dalton. And John pretty much bulldogged that whole thing. And all of a sudden we see it in Chicago Tribune. We see it on Channel 5, NBC. I mean, they're all covering it. It's like it's about time. And then the subpoenas start coming. Well, finally, because these people got educated. You have proof of wrongdoing, take it to your authorities. Take it to your local police. When the police say, we don't do that, now I'm doing an article on that police station for their failure and refusal to do the law. They took an oath to uphold the law, and they're not even going to investigate the alleged crime. That's a problem.
Speaking of Dalton, they just had their new mayor sworn in Monday night, I think, Monday or Tuesday, and all the trustees are new. And you know, generally, as watchdogs, Kirk and I get accused of every crooked name in the book that you can imagine that someone would call us. But you know, we didn't spend much time in Dalton. I mean, Jeannie was there one time with a video camera when I snapped a picture of one of the employees parking a government vehicle in a no parking zone, and he basically threatened to shoot me. But we usually get called all kinds of names in the book, and right before the swearing in, they thanked everybody that helped them through the last 3 or 4 years, and they actually accused me of being the voice of reason. Nobody's ever accused me of being the voice of reason. I'm usually one of the outsiders screaming and hollering, but apparently they scream and holler a lot more than I do if I'm the voice of reason.
And what did they find out about the finances in their first few minutes of being sworn in?
Yeah, they are so broke. You know, they really need the state to come in and take over receivership, but you can't file bankruptcy as a municipality. They're over three million in the hole. That's at the village, of probably further than that in the township. But what do you look at? Any local government, you look at their spending. Well, first you look at if the people who are in office are authorized to be in office. I couldn't count how many airport authority commissioners we threw out because they weren't authorized to be sitting in their seats. But every local government has different qualifications to be an elected or appointed official. You look at if they're authorized to be in office, then you look at how much they're spending. Start with their credit cards from, you know, at school districts, you include the summer, but generally from, you know, August through February is when we start looking, because they'll just start chinking up the credit card swipes during Christmas and Thanksgiving and New Year's.
Halloween, New Year's, Christmas bonus.
Or ours we had a small housing authority that went down to Florida during the winter every year on a taxpayer dime. Well, the housing authority code said it had to be a county of population of more than 25,000 in order for the housing authority to pay for that. So they had HUD write on the letter saying it was okay. And I wrote HUD a letter and said this housing authority belongs to the state of Illinois and the county of Edgar, and it's less than 25,000 people, and you are wrong. Give me the name of the attorney that wrote that opinion. They responded with, "You're right, we retract that opinion."
And all we did was read the state statute. That's all we did.
So it's credit cards and things that they purchase. Say if your township, like Thornton Township, used the road district money to buy 2 fully equipped, unmarked police vehicles, and then put municipal police license plates on them, they got a problem. They also have a problem with the Secretary of State not prosecuting it. They went up and took the plates off 2 days after I told them about it, but they should have prosecuted the township for lying to the Secretary of State, because townships in Illinois don't have police. Park districts may have them, school districts or community colleges and universities have them. Townships do not have police in Illinois, and they were driving around using them for pleasure to get back and forth to the courthouse when they get sued, using the lights and sirens to do that. For no reason. And then everything else under the sun, once you figure out there's something wrong, everything else under the sun is fair game. And I'm going to talk about airport authorities before you take. Airport authorities, you know, we do need airports. Airport authorities just need to follow the law. Generally, in Vermilion County, and after we ran a bunch of commissioners out, 4 of the 5 in Vermilion County got tossed out for not being qualified, and the qualifications are to live within the airport authority. and not holding the other office. Period. Unless it's a small school district and you can work for the school district.
No public employment.
Yeah, and no public employment. Vermillion County, back in the 30s, was it?
Yep.
When they first started the airport authority, the farmers got upset and sued the airport authority. So the judge says, okay, all this farmland in the 30s, all this farmland is exempt from taxes until it's sold, or how many, I can't remember.
It was 10 acres.
10 acres, unless it remained 10 acres or more, or it's sold for other purposes. 75 years go by. There's factories, shopping centers, housing,
Subdivisions, schools.
subdivisions, schools. So we find out that 70% of the tax base is not paying taxes. The 30% that was taxable back in the late 30s are putting all the taxes for the airport authority.
And that's a third carrying all the freight for everybody else. Think about that.
But they had one chairman of the airport authority, by the way, that voluntarily resigned when we first brought up the qualification, and then he finished his other public office, and then they appointed him again, and he said, we're going to fix this. So he fixed it.
But the other ones didn't want to fix it.
Yeah, it took him 2 or 3 years working with the assessor's office and the county clerk's office to identify, and you can FOIA your county assessor for a map of all properties paying taxes to the airport authority or the school district or anything else. And then you work off that map. And these are just dots all over the place, and they have to be contingent with each other. But they went to court, and the judge authorized them to reattach all those properties back to the airport authority. And, we don't like paying taxes, but the 30% of the people that are paying all the taxes are no longer doing that. They're paying, I hate the word fair share, but they're paying what they should pay.
It's everywhere, folks. How many have submitted a Freedom of Information Act request for records in your public body? Okay? When we get to the questions and answers, I'll ask for some examples of that. You will find a rabbit hole that you never thought was possible. I don't care what public body it is. And since we've been talking so much about fire departments, 15 years ago, fire department that I mutual aid with, new chief comes down. I know the guy. He's an insurance salesman. Everybody knows him. He's also a seed salesman for all the farmers. Everybody knows Kyle. Hey man, our last chief stole a bunch of money. We got to get this cleaned up. Can you help me? Hey, sure, no problem. And I walked him through everything. What the laws were, how to get answers to the questions. You got any problems, let me know. We're happy to help you. So we think everything's going hunky-dory. About 3 years ago, my assistant chief, who also volunteers up there, says, man, I hate to do this, but could you do me a favor and FOIA the Oakland Fire Department for their meeting minutes? Like, sure, what's up? Man, something's not right. We can't get any answers to anything. It's like, yeah, no problem. So next day, I called John. Hey, I need you to FOIA, and I gave him a list of stuff. Why did I want John to do it versus me? It's a conflict. I mutual aid with them. I'm not going to put myself in the center of that. Not that I can. I very well could. But I wanted that independence. You do it. So he sends a FOIA request for credit card statements, for minutes. I don't know, there was like 6 or 7 things.
I can answer this.
Go ahead.
Their response was a copy of the items I requested, along with all of their resignations of board members.
Now this guy that was the fire chief when I helped him is now a trustee. And so is his wife. And so is his dad. And they had taken out lines of credit cards. I mean, we still don't know the firm number, because it's still in the courts. Daddy and son were indicted. They let the wife off, even though her signature's on all the checks, right along with them. As an insurance salesman, any insurance people in here? Anybody? They get commissions. Okay? He had put down on the workman's compensation portion of the policy that the volunteer firefighters make $75,000 a year. They don't get paid anything. But that's a nice commission on that policy. It's massive. So between father and son, they were indicted, 23 felony counts. The son, Kylie, he pled guilty February of last year. He still hasn't been sentenced. Every month, continuance. His dad, fighting it, continuance, fighting. He still hasn't gone to trial. They're out. We've got new trustees, okay? They elected new trustees. They fixed it. Problem solved. But my point is, I knew Kylie for 20 years. It'd be like me finding out John's been stealing from my wallet when I go into the truck stop to go to the bathroom.
Don't look in your wallet.
Don't underestimate what you're going to find. How bad is it? It's back to education. And I'll close with this unless something else pops up in your head, John. No problem. Every year, one of my captains is a professor at Eastern Illinois University. And every year for probably the last 5 or 6 years, I've been asked to come in as, I'm also a business owner, but as a business owner and a watchdog, and my background in service, we come into their business marketing class and their ethics class. So during their ethics business week, if you will, I come in and do about a 2-hour presentation, and it's an interactive class. And I start from the basics. You got to know your history. How many people can recall what Benjamin Franklin was asked after the signing of our Constitution? That was the question I asked a room full of juniors the first time. The answer I hear in the back, I look up, I'm like, could you repeat that? What did you say? And the girl says, who? And I said, Benjamin Franklin. And then over here on my left, I hear, who's that? And I turn to my captain, Evan, and he's got his head down and he's doing this. Those were juniors and seniors. That was the first year. This last year, same thing, but I throw an example to them from a business marketing standpoint. What would you do? In 1992, 93, I flew from Alaska to Chicago Fire Department, and I did a presentation with a patented fire nozzle that myself and a buddy designed. He has since passed, but we started this company, and we're all done showing our product, and I'm walking down the second stairwell at the Fire Academy in downtown Chicago, and that chief says, you know, I haven't been to Disney World in a long time. My wife and I haven't been to Disney World in a long time. What do you mean? I was naive. I mean, we're talking 30 years ago. And he was, my wife and I haven't been to Disney World. I said, last time I was there as a kid, my grandparents took, me and my brothers. You're not from around here, are you? I'm like, well, I grew up in Illinois. He goes, this is Chicago. You pay to play. If you want your nozzles sold in this city, you need to pay. And the way to pay is to make sure my wife and I have our vacation. And I said, wow, that's interesting. Well, thank you very much. I'll move on to the next department and do my presentation elsewhere. That was my wake-up call to the inner circle of corruption. But that one sale would have put $1 million plus in my pocket. So I give these students an example. You're in this class as a business. You started a business and you have an opportunity to make $1 million. But doing it, you're committing a felony. What do you do? What do you think the answers were? I had one student this year. He's sitting here writing out in his notebook. And I asked him, what are you writing? He says, just a second. He kept writing. He goes, I'm going to do it. Why? Well, it's a cost-benefit analysis. This is Illinois. What's the percentage of people that actually get prosecuted for doing this kind of stuff? And that's a student made an analysis right there in the class. And I was shocked, the lack of ethics and principle. So the next morning, every morning at the local church, me and 3 other guys, we meet and we have coffee and talk and solve all the problems of the world. But in that gymnasium of the church, there's they call it an XL group of kids that they meet 3 times a week, high schoolers, and they're supposed to be the best of the best, and these teachers teach them about all kinds of stuff, getting ready to kick them out in the world. And we see this woman 3 days a week, the teacher. Hey, I've got a question for you. I had a thing I did over at Eastern. I asked the kids about Ben Franklin and our Constitution. Would you mind if I ask these students, because I'm really curious of what their answer is? And she turned and she says, who? And I said, Ben Franklin. She goes, yeah, I didn't do well in history. Who was that? And my buddy, Bob Webb, standing next to me, one of the most devout Christian men, I mean, he's principled. He turned beet red. I thought he was going to have a heart attack. And I heard words come out of his mouth when we got out in the parking lot I had never heard him say. We have teachers that are teaching. No offense to teachers. My grandparents were teachers. My dad's a teacher. My brother just retired from teaching up in Glenbard. We have people teaching, but they're not educating. Whatever they're doing, they're not educating. Okay? That's how bad it is out there. And we have to start with the basics of read the statute. If you want to know what your library can or can't do, read the Library District Act and learn what they can or can't do. Because when you go to the meeting, you'll be there, 2-3 minutes we know? If I walk into a meeting and I pull up a chair and sit down, how many have done that in a meeting? Your first meeting you ever go to? Who are you? What do you want? Why are you here? Oh, I like those questions. Because I know they don't like me being there. Okay? But if you walk in, and I did this as a township supervisor. Somebody walks in, and whether I knew them or not, hey, welcome to the meeting. Here's a copy of our agenda. Pull up a seat. At this point in the meeting, it's public comment. We'll address whatever you've got and do our best to get you answers to your questions. We're usually in and out of here within an hour. How often do you get that kind of reception in a public meeting? Okay. You had mentioned 678 people out of office. That number's incorrect, and I apologize. It's 682. We had a few in the last week. A lot of you are focused on politics and getting people in office. We're focused on making sure you have vacancies that you can put good people in. Okay?
Kirk mentioned nothing would surprise anybody that happens, but we had something that really surprised us in Kendall, Grundy, and Will County Regional Office of Education. The problem was with the former Will County Regional Superintendent and the former Grundy Kendall County Regional Superintendent and the state attorneys in both counties, all 3 counties. They started a separate group. They did an intergovernmental agreement between Grundy, Kendall, and Will County to start some alliance. I can't remember the name of it.
It was some educational alliance.
An educational alliance that would teach and hold seminars and conferences for teachers in Illinois and elsewhere. That alliance started up another company that sold EvaluWise software, teacher evaluation software, which is fine as a company that sold software. But the contract between the alliance and the nonprofits that sold the software provided that all the employees of the original Office of Education did all the work for the nonprofit developing that software that they were selling and not giving any money to the government, whose employees did all the work. They did that so those employees could take part in the teacher retirement system. All the money that they were paid went to their retirement program accounts in the TRS. That contracted company would give hundreds of thousands of dollars of bonuses back to the employees of the ROE. When we first brought it up, we went to one meeting, and we wrote a couple of articles, went to one meeting, and they announced they're shutting the entire operation down. It doesn't exist anymore. We're closing everything. All the employees were notified they're terminated. Then we got a tip that Grundy Kendall ROE hired all those employees. So I said, really? So I went to I FOIA'd the county board for the number of employees that they had approved Regional Office of Education to have on staff. A day later, I was notified they were all terminated from that job, because the county board sets the number of employees the ROE can have. They didn't do that. So he couldn't have any employees, let alone hire them because he wanted to pull the wool over somebody's eyes and shut it down. They had already signed a new contract with the software company to do it on their own. Well, they were terminated for that, and then now they're working for the software company. But in that process, they were given access to the county or the ROE property. One of their employees also had a husband that quit and started working, and they bought a casino in Barbados. Guess where all the hiring and firing came from? Through the ROE emails. The Majestic Isle Casino offshore was hosting their servers and their emails on servers that belong to the state of Illinois.
Oh, it gets better.
We found that because looking at the electronic emails, it has a trace of all the different, because we had somebody check to see where all the different servers it went through, and it went right through the state of Illinois. And
I think with that whole story, what was so shocking was the first meeting they shut the whole thing down. Well, that means they knew what they were doing was wrong. And we knew from experience what they were doing was criminal, in our opinion. A good ROE in Will County, she's awesome, stepped up to the plate, did the right thing. The feds got involved. And today on our way up, and I point to Jeannie because we've talked about this for years, we found out that all of them that got before the grand jury pled the fifth. Yeah. They know what they did was wrong. It was criminal. It was a perfect Illinois Doge example. It was a money laundering operation where they were taking care of their own, and they created a system that they were going to benefit through a retirement program completely illegal. Now, will anybody get prosecuted? I don't know. One of our first cases, the woman and her daughter-in-law in local county mass transit, we wrote about it, and everybody blasted us because they knew this lady. Oh, she's so nice, and you're picking on them. You don't know what you're talking about. You're evil. You're this, you're that. 5 years later, the day before the statute of limitations, she was convicted. She pled guilty. 5 years. There's no excuse for that. And before I forget, since he brought up county boards, your county board can set the number of people that ROE can hire. County boards set the number of deputies that you have. How many county deputies do you have? I don't know.
That's probably not the case in Cook County since they're home rule.
Maybe not with Cook in the home rule, but in the county code, it specifically outlines that's to be set by the county board. So we've been bird dogging Shelby County for years. I mean, I could go on for hours. And I asked for that record, and they have no record of it ever being done. I said to Brian, the sheriff, I said, so how is it you come about this many deputies if it's never been set by the county board? And he said, we have to fix this. And I'm like, yeah, kind of like the 19 auxiliary deputies you had that also has to be set by the county board that never was. How many court security officers do you have? Well, probably we shouldn't have any because they haven't set that number either. So tomorrow night's county board meeting in Shelby County, I'm hoping there's some things that get fixed. Because there are good people out there that will fix things when it's brought to their attention. But once you read the statutes, look for keywords like shall. You shall do this. Oh, well, let's see if they're doing it. It makes for a great FOIA. Are they doing it? Odds are they're not.
You need to, if you're going to look at a specific unit of government, find the statute that applies to them. Also, find the other statutes that apply to every local government, like the Open Meetings Act, Freedom of Information Act, health, employment laws, everything under the sun. Look at Attorney General opinions, not only on the Open Meetings Act and the Freedom of Information Act, but also they issue opinions on compatibility of offices. Research court cases. You don't have to be an attorney to look at a court case. You know, you can look at Allen versus Clark County Park District, even though I'm the one that typed up that lawsuit. Put his name first. I'm not an attorney, but at the time we were not aware that, well, we weren't even an organization at the time, were we?
No, I don't think on that one.
Yeah. It was an Open Meetings Act lawsuit. But you can go to Google Scholar.
I brought it up, and I have to share that story.
Yeah, go to Google Scholar, type in, Open Meetings Act, and it'll come up. Find the statute with a paragraph number, put that in there, and you should have lawsuits that come up that reference that paragraph of the statute.
And reading those court cases tells you how the courts interpret the statute. And it makes it real simple when somebody says, oh, that's not true. Well, if that's not true, then read this, because this Supreme Court or appellate court said this is how they read that law. And it really opens your eyes as to how things are supposed to be applied. That particular case came out of Clark County Park District. We're in a board meeting. We bust them out for a violation. The next morning, we sue them. We had one good person on the board. In closed session, 2 members of the board said to the attorney, if you lose against the watchdogs, because we were suing them pro se, we didn't hire anybody. If you lose against them, you're fired. Oh, you don't have a thing to worry about. The judge is a former law partner. That's what she said in closed session. So we get to court, and we got our backsides handed to us on one motion. They tried to have sanctions against us. That didn't work. And they denied that there was a violation of the Open Meetings Act. So we appealed, and that one we hired an attorney to take up the appeal. 3-judge panel. It was in Springfield, wasn't it? Yeah. Our attorney gets up, gives his spiel. The other attorney gets up and says, well, Your Honors, thank you. I really don't have a whole lot to say. And the chief of the 3 judges says, much like the agenda, as in the agenda of the meeting that didn't have the stuff that they did, they ate her lunch. 3-0, we won, reversed the lower court. Within 2 weeks, that judge resigned. He retired from office.
And the whole issue was the park board was trying to lease out, to develop their own subdivision and lease lots to people that made a whole lot more money than the normal people in Clark County. And that property that they were going to make a subdivision and lease out, they had got through eminent domain or threats. And when they first started that park district, not even 50 years earlier, with the people that owned that property who were still alive and were upset that they were getting ready to do that to the property that they got stole from them. So we noticed there was nothing on the agenda. The agenda item was approved covenants, established lease rates.
Are we leasing canoes, cabins? What are we leasing?
What covenants are we talking about?
You'll find out Monday when we file it. That's what they told the lady that asked.
So the Open Meetings Act requires them to tell people what they're voting on before they do a vote, and it has to be on agenda. They didn't do that. They lost. And before this whole process ended, through that, a new board majority was appointed, or was elected. The last meeting, the same day they were going to transition to the new board, the old board put on the agenda to lease out the property, and we told one of the board members that we're going to be on both boards, vote in favor of it. Why? Oh, we're gonna vote. We've been fighting against that forever. Well, vote in favor of it, and then an hour later, when your new board takes over, vote the motion to reconsider and cancel the whole thing. And they did, and the new board the old board was proud of themselves for finally getting what they worked so hard for. An hour later, the new board, while the old board was still there, brought it up and canceled all of it. So I guess we're ready for questions.
Yes, go ahead. In the back. And just a qualifier for time, and I know here, I'm rambling. Make your question in the form of a question, not a story. We get to tell the stories, okay? And it will save some time. Just try to be real precise on what your question is. Thank you.
Okay, so how would one go about digging up information for, well, the city of Elgin spending $350,000 per acre for 8 acres to clean up burnt things and old tarps on land that someone thinks they own, and the Kane County Health Department is putting in the money for it?
Okay, first thing you need to find out is what's the source of that information? Are there minutes that support it? You need to ask for minutes of whatever meetings those things were talked about.
She has the minutes. This was at the public hearing. It's a transcript of the public hearing for, I believe it's the public hearing petition for zoning. So she has the minutes right here.
So that was at a zoning hearing. Well,
Right.
they're wanting to clean something up, not zone something. When you have two agencies involved, you want to get a copy of any intergovernmental agreement. If the health department is transferring money, the county health department is transferring money, you want to find out under what authority, says who with what proof, what statute in the county health code permits them to give county money to the city. Because that's the county's supposed to benefit the county, not just the city of Elgin.
And who owns the property?
Who owns the property? This $300 and some thousand to clean it up, was it put out for bid? Where's the publication of the bid? Receipt of the bids? I mean, the key is gather as much information so you can build the narrative as to what really happened. Because a lot of times, you might have a good hook there, but to set it, there might be 5 or 6 other documents that tie into that really puts the brakes on things.
Just to educate everyone here, part of this was these 8 acres where homeless people were living, according to this document. So they want to clean up 8 acres for $350,000 per acre.
Sound like a good
That's
project
here.
for some Boy Scouts to get involved.
Need to get a copy of the contracts.
Yeah.
Who owns the property? Is that state or county property?
We don't know. So that's something we'll have to check into.
If it's government property, whoever is benefiting from the use of that property has to sign a sworn statement attesting to who all's benefiting.
Right. Any other questions?
My name is Joe. I'm a security guard based in Waukegan. I've been spending the last 4 years making a list of my attorney father's corrupt friends up in Lake County. I was wondering if I could give this list to you and maybe get some advice about how to
Sure.
pursue this information.
Be happy to look at it.
Thank you. One other thing I wanted for you to bring up was, I believe last year when I was doing research about both of you, it said there was something in Kane County that occurred with the sheriff, maybe? Did I read that correctly? State's attorney? Was there something that you researched?
We have researched so much.
We're all over the state.
Yeah, I
thought
don't
maybe
recall.
you-
I recall we had some, there was some stuff that tied into Kane County here recently, but I don't remember off the top of my head whether it was voter election stuff or petition objections. I don't recall what it was off the top of my head.
So in Kane County, we have a lot of trouble here. A lot of, Democrats in bed with unions. A lot of teachers, unions trouble. Have you ever addressed anything with the media helping, teacher unions or whatever, doing hit pieces on local grassroots people who are trying to question, or just trying to support certain candidates?
Great question. One of the things John and I, we strive to keep R's and D's out of the conversation. And we focus on the statute and the case law that applies to the statute.
And we
Because-
keep all the hot button social issues out of our website too.
That by doing that, you're throwing the politics out of it, because if we're going to apply things equally, Lady Justice is supposed to be blind, the law applies across the board, and we have to ask the right questions on that. And there's times you're going to expose good D's or good R's, however you want to look at it. You're going to expose some of those people. Case in point, in our county, and it's tied to the media, one of the things we do in our watchdog class, we do a 4-hour training seminar. How do you get the message out? Because the challenge is, a lot of times your local media doesn't get it out, not necessarily because the reporter doesn't want to report it, but they answer to somebody. They answer to advertisers. They answer to their editors. I hate to say it, but a lot of them have an agenda. And local government accountability is not a feel-good, hey, who won the football game and whose dog got found lost after 10 years. But in that training program, we talk about packaging the information and doing the work for them. I can't tell you how many complete, ready-to-go files we've given law enforcement. Exhibit A, Exhibit B, this statute was violated, this statute was violated. Here's the evidence to support it. You do all the work for them. And you hand that to a reporter. Build a relationship with those reporters and let them run with it. I don't care who gets the credit. We want to fix this stuff. And by doing that, you'll find out real quick whether they're journalists or activists. And there's a big difference. We have some situations. We're downstate. We like with WA&D with Doug Wolf, Channel 17. Well, his wife's the mayor of Decatur. He's a Democrat. His wife's a Democrat. You know what? We work great with Doug. We share information all the time. Hey, man, this is a good one. This needs to get on the news. Bam. He puts some great stories up about what's going on, and he reciprocates when, for whatever reason, whether his time or whatever, hey, you guys, you got more time than I do on this. You need to bird dog this. The goal is to fix the problem, but unless people don't, if they don't know that there is a problem, you're just out there doing this. Our local newspaper, I don't think they've written anything about us in how many years?
It's been probably a decade or more.
Because we read about them. I'm serious. We had people, we would go to a meeting and videotape it. Don't go to a meeting without recording it. Whether it's video or audio, you have to have a recording of it. We'd go to the meeting, we record it, we put it up on an article up, here's a county board meeting, here's what happened. And people would say, I just read the local paper. What meeting were they in? I mean, you couldn't cross what happened in the meeting. And they were making quotes. County board member says the majority of the county wants this. So John sends a FOIA to the county board member, to Carl Farnham. Did you ask the majority, what survey did you get this information from? He goes, I don't know what you're talking about. I never said that to the press. I never said that to anybody. So we write an article about the press basically fabricating a story. Call them out if they're not going to be honest. But do it tactfully and with the evidence to prove it. Says who with what proof? Send them an email. Hey, you said this. Could you tell me what your source on? And I'm not asking for personal sources, but what evidence do you have to support this claim? Well, Carl said it. Okay, well, let's go talk to Carl. Carl said, I never said that.
I can answer the Kane County issue. That was recent, within the last 6 or 8 months. And the Secretary of State got involved after we wrote several articles. What happened was anybody familiar with CDL is?
Commercial driver license?
Anybody familiar with the anti-masking law? Not dealing with COVID. Now, nothing to do with COVID. Anti-masking dealing with commercial driver's licenses. No court and no judge and no prosecutor can reduce the sentence of a commercial driver's license holder for crimes committed while he holds that license, dealing with drugs and a few other things. Alcohol, if he was arrested for a DUI, or had drugs on him. So what Kane County did was, and we document this on our website. I could quote a few things wrong, but if you go to our website, this guy had crashed a vehicle, his private vehicle, but he had a CDL in a different county, and killed the deputy sheriff. But we find out several years earlier he had another crash where somebody else got hurt. And Kane County reduced the sentence, and the judge even signed an order directing the circuit clerk not to notify the Secretary of State of the conviction and what he was charged with. They were supposed to immediately revoke his driver's license. They didn't. They let him continue working until the court worked its way through the system, and then they masked his conviction to the Secretary of State. So the Secretary of State got involved and said, I can't remember the number of years, I want an accounting of every charge and conviction and disposition of every person in Kane County that had a commercial driver's license at the time. So what happened, and the Secretary of State acknowledged, what happened in Kane County resulted in the death of a deputy. And that affects financing, federal financing. They're supposed to notify the feds. I don't know who NTSB is, they the one that run the commercial driver's license.
No, it'd be Department of Transportation.
Yeah, they're supposed to notify the Department of Transportation of these crimes so they can revoke the license. The state's supposed to revoke it and notify the feds. If they don't, it can affect the grants coming down from the federal government to the counties. And I think, hopefully they'll get to the bottom of it and put a stop to it, and maybe even go back and revoke all those licenses that should have been revoked in the past.
That's a great question, because it triggers for us to follow up where they're at on the investigation. We backed off since they were actively pursuing the malfeasance. So it's been 6, 8 months. They should have some records that we can get to find out what they uncovered, and then hold them accountable to what are you doing about it.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Extremely informative and very upsetting. Would you say the root of the problem here is the cooperation between different local agencies, the incestuous relationships they have with each other in a business sense? That they don't want to rat each other out, and that we really need to do what you're proposing in order to get down to the bottom, because no one wants to rat out their friend. And it seems as though the relationships run from the agencies right up through into the courtroom with the judges. And that seems to me a huge thing to take down.
That's a great question. I'm of the opinion, and this is it's going to be a broad response, but I'm of the opinion your two most dangerous public officials in the state of Illinois is your state attorney, your county state's attorney, and your local supervisor of assessments.
Hey, we got an assessor here. Where's he at? We're not talking about you.
The reason I say that, what we have seen is most county boards go to the assessor's office, here's our number, you gotta make us hit it. This is what we need. So when they go out, your property now goes up. Why? Because they need to hit a number, not because your property's worth more. But you can fight it. Go hire an appraiser and fight the system, and you might win for a couple, 3 years. But only 20% of them fight it, so it's a win-win. Those two offices need more eyeballs than you can shake a stick at. Because one takes your money, and the other one is supposed to hold everybody accountable, and they don't because of the political nature. The third prong that I think is the biggest problem, I can go to a public meeting. Is that my phone? Is that a home run? You see, you get to walk out of here laughing, all right? You're fine. This speaker's loud enough to overcome it. I think the third prong, I go to a public meeting and I ask, and this is what I asked my first county board meeting, or our 911 board. Have you ever read the statute for 911? What are you talking about? Well, it's the statute that has all the things you guys are supposed to be doing. And they turn and they look at each other. Well, they got on the board because some crony appointed them. And I've been on the board since day one, and I'll show you how to run a meeting. And they train each other. But how many have ever done a train the trainer? Yeah. Well, you train the trainer who trains someone else, and before you come in to evaluate, down at the bottom, what did you train them on?
We got board members that fall asleep.
Well, we have some we've caught snoring. Our assessor in board review was snoring. But my point is, back to the education. A lot of these public bodies don't even know what their job is. But they're on a township. They're there serving their community. And God bless them, but they don't know what that means until you start asking them the tough questions.
You want to talk about how to find out which lawsuit settlements that state representative senators have been paying for sexual harassment? Who did we get that on?
Was that current AG? I don't remember which case you're talking about.
No, there was a county board member that was a state representative. Is that McHenry County? Is he the chair?
Jack Franks?
Franks. He was the one. I believe he was the one. Maybe I'm wrong. But anyway, the state representatives and senators all get sued all the time for misconduct with their employees. Some of them, sexual harassment. And I can't remember what state official it was, but I believe it was a sexual harassment issue.
He was banned from the House by Mike Madigan, if I remember right.
Without proper notification and police escort. The lawsuit settled. So we FOIA requested a copy of all settlements. And the way the state officials word their settlements, and it might, you correct me if I'm wrong, but it might be across the board. If there's a settlement, they just say, cause settled, each party paying their own fees. Period, stamp, judge signs it, case over. I looked at that, like, well, that doesn't match what we're being told. So I asked for all payments to the individual from the state checkbook that made the complaint against that state representative or senator. That's when I found the payment. And then I had to FOIA request a copy of the agreement that resulted into that payment. So if you're trying to find out all these civil suits that are going against state officials and how much are being paid out, you won't find it by FOIAing for a copy of the settlement agreement, because it might be contained in a separate document. At least I know they do that at the state level.
Yep.
And if you don't read the whole thing that you get, you'll realize something's wrong and you need to ask for something else.
You're right.
Yes. Is there a statute for the assessor's job? Yes. In the county code, actually it's in the revenue code, they'll have county assessors when you look at the column of all the things in the revenue code. And the supervisor of assessment is a constitutional office set up by our state constitution. And in that process, it tells you all the things they can and can't do and what they're supposed to be doing. Case in point, Coles County, our supervisor of assessment had not done commercial assessments in supposedly 16 years. Well, that means everybody else is carrying the freight, okay? So she didn't do it because she wasn't qualified. She couldn't do commercial assessments. There's a problem if you're the supervisor of assessment, because there's some requirements of what you're supposed to be able to do and what license you're supposed to have, but that's another story for another day. The county board went out for bid for an appraiser, or assessor, but they hired an appraiser under contract that we uncovered bid rigging on, because they knew they wanted you, but you put in a bid. Well, now we got 2 bids. Gosh. Well, will you add this to yours? And they sent the email. Would you add this? Because if you do, they didn't, and we'll pick you. So they contract with this person. Well, the county board can't contract with someone to do that other elected official's job or appointed official's job. We're already paying her to do the job. It's called Ashton v. Cook. It's a case from the 40s where a state's attorney allowed the county board to hire an attorney to go do his job. Can't do it. I mean, it's long-standing case law. So the locals down there got involved, and it's actually still a case in Danville. The judge amazingly ruled in the county's favor. I mean, it was the biggest, I'll call it a word salad. I've never seen anything like it. The more they write in their rulings or their orders, I mean, when it's 40-some pages, there's usually a reason. It's called distraction. And when you start pinpointing the lies and the misrepresentation in the case, it's terrible. But in that one situation, they racked people for upwards of 4,000% increase in their taxes. And we've been through 3 supervisor of assessments since uncovering that. The guy all of a sudden is, it's not a contract, I'm an employee. Yeah, 2 years after the fact. And the state's attorney at the time says, well, he gets a 1099, but he could be a 1099 employee. No, he's not. He's sending invoices. Show me an employee that sends invoices to the county. And they want to play this back and forth. Well, that state's attorney now is a judge. If that gives you an indication of the problem we have. But if you don't have this information, how do you go and expose? We don't need to be putting these people in office. You got to have the dirt. And the only way to get it is to ask for it. Because it's not going to just fall into your lap. Or be a source that your people inside are going to give you information. The tips that we get, we can't keep up with it. And you're probably seeing that with Deutsch. It's like, how do you keep up? You can't keep up. You have to prioritize. There's good people that want this stuff to stop. Make yourself available as a source to help that happen.
Okay, so my question is about FOIAs. Many of us have done FOIAs, and I understand that if you do too many, they will just cut you off. Is it legal? Is there a way around that other than having somebody else do your FOIAs? Is it really legal for them to do that? And is there a way for us to know how to do a FOIA that will get answered?
Define cut you off.
They won't answer you anymore. They'll come up with all kinds of excuses.
No, they can't just cut you off. Absolutely not. A lot of times what they do is say, well, you're a frequent requester. And there's a category where now you have to wait 21 days instead of 5. Or your request is unduly burdensome. If it's unduly burdensome, they have to give you a chance to modify it and resubmit it. The other one is voluminous requester. You're asking for so much stuff, it's voluminous, and it's going to cost you this amount of money to get the records. And you have 10 days to respond, and we're going to provide the records and send you a bill. When that happens, now your organization, is it a nonprofit? Are you incorporated as a nonprofit?
Yes.
If you read the FOIA statutes, there's exemptions for nonprofits. DuPage County, I got a phone call from a gal, wanted the Dominion contract with the county. Okay? And I don't remember who she was. She sent me the FOIA she sent, and the county refused to give it to her. So I took her FOIA, and I sent it. I got it all. 2 reasons. One, You're not going to play the game with us, and they know it. The exemptions don't apply to a nonprofit. They were trying to apply to them. Well, we uncovered that the county clerk had entered into an agreement with Dominion on behalf of the county, which a clerk can't enter an agreement on behalf of the county. She can only do it on behalf of her office. Okay? And in that agreement, it bound the county to notify Dominion of any FOIA request relating to anything Dominion related. It's in their contract, but the whole contracting process was improper. So you have to have people in that county that have standing to sue to fix it. We would love to sue them, but we don't have standing there. As an organization, it gets thrown out over standing. It takes a resident, a taxpayer there to fight that kind of fight. And in that process, when all that Dominion stuff went down and all the lawsuits were flying around and everybody getting sued, we got a 23 or I forget how many pages. It was almost 30-page threatening letter from Dominion because we wrote an article about Dominion. And it was about DuPage County and their contract, and they threatened to sue us for defamation. Bring it on. Everything we wrote was 100% true and accurate, and the record proved it. You have to be factually on point when you're going to publish something. Facebook's not the place to publish. Build a website. Make it usable, trace, people can search it. How many tried to find something you read on Facebook a week ago? I mean, you just go from one page to the next and it's gone. You can't find it. But having that resource of information, before you know it, you've got a database that everybody can pull from. Okay? Any other questions? Yes, sir.
We have a new group in the city of St. Charles, and one of the issues maybe related to the old group was a it's a Open Meetings Act violation. And what's the statute of limitations on that?
You can only complain to the Attorney General or file a lawsuit on OMA within 60 days of the meeting, or within 60 days of when the average person doing due diligence finds out about the offense. So you can't know about something that happened 4 years ago and then all of a sudden, oh, hey, I just found out. No, it doesn't work that way.
And that's an interesting question, because in the statute it says the Attorney General is supposed to make a determination in 60 days. Okay? We just published a story the other day. Attorney General issued that on Joliet Township. I submitted that request for review almost 6 years ago. They just finished it. And they can't say it was, well, the attorney handling that one, moved to another agency. It was the same woman who opened the case that closed the case. Justice delayed is justice denied. And in that report, they said they wouldn't make a determination. You just make, in the future, you make sure you do this. Well, what you're telling them to do is what they didn't do. So are you saying they violated OMA? And she says the letter speaks for itself. So I wrote the letter. I wrote the article. Joliet Township violates OMA and exposed everything. But what they didn't tell the world, they justified the second prong of my complaint by saying the township provided an affidavit that what I alleged happened in closed session never happened. Well, really? It didn't happen? Is there a reason you didn't share that affidavit with me at the time? Because had I got the affidavit and knew the lies being told in it, I could have got affidavits from people that were there that would put in question this affidavit. But they never shared that affidavit with me.
So we have one question here, and then Jeannie Ives, and then that will be it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
There's a group called the Young Republicans. The first question, are you bipartisan, or do you tend to lean more to the right than the left? I think it's a redundant question, but...
Who do you want to ask first?
Either one. I'm curious. Here's my thought. We have a group called Young Republicans.
Very familiar with it.
They seem to be much more engaged, and I'm just wondering if you've ever thought about maybe getting together with them, educating them, because they have the time, they have the energy to do some of the eyeballs, And I think to teach them at this age would be a spectacular thing to...
Before I tell you my personal,
Thank you.
as an organization,
I'll say,
go for it.
as an organization, we will speak to anybody. We
And
we spoke at the Illinois League of Women Voters Conference several years ago. We provide presentations at the Illinois Municipal League Conference several years ago. The Park District went around to come over. We're getting ready to talk with the Township Attorneys Association here in the next month or two. And we've talked to the municipal clerks, so Northern Illinois Mayors Association, lots of them. And we never ask anybody, any organization, what their political leanings are. Unless, you know, they're wearing white hoods, we're not going. But, you know, a cursory look, if they're not off the wall offensive, we will go talk to them. Left side, right side, in the middle, doesn't matter to us.
And you'll notice when we write our articles, I said before, we don't care what party they are, we're focusing on the law. Are you following the law, yes or no? And on the personal note, I was a Republican precinct committeeman. I'm a fiscal conservative, have been my whole life. I spent a career in the Air Force, John spent a career in the Army. I ran into my 911 situation, and I'm at my 911 board videotaping everything. At the same time, I'm circulating petitions for Brad Halbrook, who is one of our state reps downstate. Well, Roger Eddy was the number 2 at the time, Republican, I think. And he was my state rep. And I knew Roger. Roger was also a full-time school superintendent. Okay? He calls me and he says, "What in the hell are you doing circulating petitions for Brad Halbrook?" I said, "Well, I'm a precinct committeeman. That's my job." "Well, you're not supporting me?" I mean, I don't support either. I'm circulating petitions. I'm not playing favorites. Let the party make a decision. So he chews me out for a good 45 minutes on the phone, about 9:30 in the morning. I said, "Okay, I hear you. We're going to have to agree to disagree. But on another note, since you're real familiar with Paris, Illinois, and Edgar County, I'm going to send you a video, and I want you to watch it. You need to tell me, how do I fix this?" And it was massive corruption. With that little phone call or dispatch of a baby not breathing, we uncovered gambling with our money, pizza parties, beer parties, vehicles getting filled up with 28 gallons of gas, even though the vehicle only has an 18-gallon tank. Okay? So I sent this video to him, and he calls me back 10 minutes later. Chews me out. "I can't believe, what do you want me to do with this? Tell me how I'm supposed to fix this." Well, actually, let me back up. That was the second phone call. The first phone call was, "I can't look at it on my school server because it blocks YouTube page." And I said, "School server?" He goes, "Yeah, I'm at work." I said, "Were you at work when you called to chew me out?" "Well, yeah, I start work at 8 o'clock. "Roger, you can't politic while you're at work." That led to uncovering him and another former state senator, Mr. Ryder, taking campaign donations in their office. It also led to a dinner, or not a dinner, it was a meet and greet for the candidates, 3 candidates up there, and Roger says, "By gosh, in my ethics, or in my classes I teach at Eastern," I gave away, "my classes I teach at Eastern," I'm like, "Whoa, you teach at Eastern? You're a superintendent, you're a state rep, and you teach at Eastern." You know what he teaches at Eastern? Ethics. How many know Adam Angieski? Passed away here recently. God bless his soul. We worked with Adam for years. Adam calls, "Hey, I got a project. You're close to I forget the name of the town that Roger's in. Could you do me a favor? They're not answering FOIAs. They're not giving us the information. They're stalling. We need this information." What days was he in school? We wanted the school calendar. They wouldn't give it to us. Because in the contract, there were requirements he had to be at school when school was open. He couldn't be in Springfield. Because we had his voting record. We knew when he was in Springfield. Okay? I went to the Hudsonville Library. It took me 8 hours. And I went through microfiche. for 4 years. You know what I was looking for? A lunch menu. Because every day that there's a lunch at school, it's published in the paper what the kids are getting to eat. And I built a calendar of what days school was open. And we caught him red-handed being in Springfield when he's supposed to be here, so he's violating his contract. He resigned as superintendent, he resigned as state rep, he resigned from the race. Now, unfortunately, the system took care of him. He got nice association jobs, but we got him out of 3 public offices. And then later we find out his statement of economic interests, that's your ethics statement, that's supposed to disclose all your employment and your working with other public bodies. He lied on that too.
And it goes further. Remember the legislative scholarships?
Oh, that one's worth a few minutes if we can.
His son, and was that Cabela? The one they appointed to IDNR?
Yeah, it was out of Salem. I can't remember his name off the top of my head.
Whatever his name, he's not in office now, I don't think. They would give legislative scholarships to, if you give my daughter-in-law a four-year full ride scholarship, I'll make sure I give yours one. They never do that. And
because I can't give one to my own kid. That wouldn't look good. But I'll give one to your kid. You give your benefit to my kid.
how do we find out?
Facebook.
Typed his name in Facebook, and up pops his daughter, son. Then we search that name and find out the son works for the state legislative whatever commission. And then we FOIA for all the scholarships issued by different state representatives, and then we match the last names. And even though the last name didn't match the state representatives, Facebook told us who their relatives were. And we put that all together, started writing about it, and they canceled all of them.
Yeah, that's no longer a benefit that state reps get to have anymore because it was being abused.
Well, I mean, these guys don't really brag about them, so I think I will, since I've known them for well over a decade. We've worked on some really complicated and impactful issues over the time. Where are you guys going?
I'm going to grab something.
Great. That's fine. But I mean, these guys are an Illinois treasure. They're not trained as lawyers. They have no law degree, never went to law school, none of that. But they know more than elected officials. They know more than most lawyers in this case. They are respected by the Attorney General because they know that they know what they know when they bring up a case, whether it's OMA or whatever. I mean, I met them. Was our first one COD?
Yep.
Yeah, our first thing was COD, and essentially they did all the hard work that then the Chicago Tribune basically copied and pasted, and then got, of course, awards for. But that COD case caused them to be sued by one of the main protagonists in the entire issue, and they are still under a lawsuit that is going on how many years now?
We're in year 11.
They're at year 11. They've had to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars of their own money to defend themselves. They were also embroiled in that lawsuit with Adam Andrzejewski. He is now out of it, obviously, because he's deceased. But these guys have put everything out there to do the right thing for the people of Illinois, and I think you guys should know that. The other thing that they were instrumental in is I got a call from a guy who also now has died. And it was the Northern Illinois University, President Baker, total debacle. That led to a Auditor General report, a scathing Auditor General report, but none of that would have happened. None of the work would have happened with COD. None of it would have happened with NIU had these guys not actually done the gut work, the tenacious gut work of digging in, looking up stuff, looking up filings, checking, FOIAing stuff, putting the whole case together. Because they did this all. The other thing that they were really, their important work, and unfortunately he's still in office, is the Auditor General himself, who is a scumbag. And I was one of 10 legislators to vote against his appointment, but he got away basically with criminal action, misusing his campaign account to the hundreds of thousands of dollars.
$500,000.
$500,000. But these guys are the ones who put that away. And they continue to do the work, and they do this as a non-profit. They are a non-profit. They don't get paid to do this work. They do it because they care. And it just goes to show you what, these two hayseeds, is that what they called you?
That's what Dr. Bruder at the
Dr.
college,
Bruder,
Southern Illinois
Dr.
Hayseeds.
Bruder, Southern Illinois Hayseeds. It just goes to show you what these hayseeds can do to really change things. And I think they're an inspiration. They should be an inspiration to all of us to say, yeah, I have time to go to my school board meeting. I have time to go look at this, what's happening in the city or the county. I can watch over just one particular agency and maybe I can make a difference. But anyway, I love these guys, and every Sunday night you can hear them. They are featured on my radio show on AM 560. And my show's from 7 to 9 p.m. and they're usually in the 8:35 spot, and they never run out of new stuff to cover and new stories to talk about. Thank you.
We certainly appreciate what they both, John and Kirk, have done. I think that what I encourage all of you is turn off your TV and go to a board meeting of King County, of school board, the local townships. There's a lot of places. And in fact, I was talking to Leslie, who is back at the table. She watches the meetings at home, at her house. You don't, if you say, oh, I've got something that night, well, the next night, don't watch TV, watch your board meeting. There's multiple meetings that you can attend sitting in front of your computer. You don't even have to leave your house. However, that being said, it's really good if you go there, because just like they said, when you sit right there in front of them, and the more people, we've learned particularly at the King County Board meeting, that when we're there, they are aware and they know we're listening, because this information is not getting out. And Leslie mentioned when she was watching the other night, there were only 4 people on the Geneva School Board watching what was going on. 4 people in all of Geneva watching to see what's going on. And that's where our problem is, because people, the citizens, are not getting educated. They're sitting in front of the TV. So I encourage you to tell all your friends, get away from the TV and start watching what's going on around you. So we greatly appreciate what you've said tonight. This certainly will open a lot of our eyes to know more ways that we can dig in to find out what's going on, because we're trying, but we just need a little more direction on how to approach this.
I want to emphasize the importance of what she just said about attending a meeting, and not just, you have a network of people here, all kinds of backgrounds. You might hear something in a meeting that triggers something in your head based on your background, or you might hear it. When you put your heads together collectively, you can start to identify where the rat is. You can make a difference. And when you know, hey, we've got a controversial meeting coming up, we need bodies there. Even if you just sit in the room, you will see a different reaction from those people. Barbara Bird Bennett, one mother, one housewife, went to every school board meeting. Did it for how many years? 20 years? One woman went to every, she never missed a meeting. That's just what she did, okay? And something, she learned through the process, because you go to enough meetings, you start to see how things are supposed to be done. And she read and she learned. And in one meeting, they did, I forget what the total contract number was. You remember, Jeannie? It was millions. Yeah, it was millions of dollars of no bid kickback program. And she's like, wait a minute, that's not right. So she went home and she wrote her blog about it. Department of Justice picked up on the blog. They prosecuted her. Barbara Bird Bennett, that was Cook County, wasn't it? That was one woman. Don't ever think you can't make a difference, because you can. But you can't if you don't put your first foot forward. Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.